Everybody over the age of 55 needs to grow up. And just so you don't think I'm slamming old people, I'm almost a decade over 55. This Russia, they can't get their heads out of 1980. Now, this is what we faced in 1980. The USSR had a gross domestic product of $1.2 trillion. The United States had a gross domestic product of 2.8 trillion. That was double the size of the Soviet Union. But don't forget, when the Soviet Union produced something, they're paying way less wages and all that. It's way cheaper for them to make a tank than it is for us. Not to mention, the Soviet Union had a population of 260 million people. The United States had a population of around 230 million people. Today, Russia has a population of 150 million. We have a population of 330 million. But that's us versus Russia. Let's go ahead and throw on our NATO allies into this mix. Again, Russia has a population of around 150 million people. If you throw in our population with NATO's population, you're talking about 1 billion people versus 150 million people. And let's not even get into the technological difference between us and Russia. We have the most sophisticated technology ever known to mankind. I have a lot of disagreements with Ben Shapiro, but I like what he says about Russia. Russia is a gas station with nuclear weapons. And economically, give me a break. Russia has an economy the size of Texas. It's a little over $2 trillion. If you combine the United States with our allies in NATO, you are talking about 40 trillion, $40 trillion and 1 billion people against 150 million people with a budget of, with a GDP of 2.2 trillion. The United States alone has a gross domestic product of 22 trillion, 10 times the size of Russia. So Putin is going to have 150 million people and a budget the size of Texas. And he's going to take on people who have $40 trillion and 1 billion people to draw from. You're in some sort of fantasy land. You know how much more military equipment we could produce versus Russia. It would be child's play. Russia is begging Iran and China and North Korea for military equipment. The man can't produce enough military equipment to take on Ukraine, a nation of 38 million. Again, Russia has 150 million. Ukraine has 38 million. GDP, Russia has 2.2 trillion. Ukraine's has a GDP, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say budget, a GDP of 160 billion. Again, Russia has a GDP 10 times what Ukraine has and a population 1 about 4 times the size. And in 2 years, they can't wipe out Ukraine? Get real. They're fighting 38 million people, but he's going to take on 1 billion people? Have you lost your mind? And again, don't think China's going to help them. They play like they get along now, but they hate each other. Besides, China's troops would be about 4,000 miles away. And China has virtually zero combat experience outside of suppressing its own citizens. Now, I'm not saying he might not go after a Moldova or somebody that's not in NATO. I'm just saying the idea that Putin is going to attack a NATO country is just ridiculous. He might go after, like I say, he might go after little other countries that are around him. He might go after Georgia or something. Who knows? Get Stalin's old homestead back into Russia. And like I say, what's just funnier than that? What's funnier than that is when the Soviet Union was actually a real threat. It was, oh man, we got to talk to them. You know, we sure we'll reduce our spending. Yeah, we'll do it. Well, let's work together here. And now that he has an economy the size of Texas, oh, he's a big scary dude. Russia, ooh, Russia's so scary now. Their mind is locked in a different time. But let me just say, that's not just, the people above 55. But, it's not just Russia that I'm not that worried about. I'm not worried about Italy reforming the Roman Empire. I'm not worried about Turkey recreating the Ottoman Empire. It's just not going to happen. I'm not worried about Iran refurbishing the Persian Empire, although I worry about Iran for other reasons, but I'm not worried they're going to create another Persian Empire. And we got to stop this expanding NATO crap. NATO's supposed to be to protect democracies, not to throw any country in the world in there. I don't want to go to war to protect Georgia. All right? Not talking about the state, I'm talking about the country in Europe. I don't want to go to war to protect Albania. I sure as hell don't want to go to war to protect Ukraine, the second most corrupt country in Europe. Now, I don't mind giving a few $1 billion just to poke the bear, but we're not talking about defending a democracy here. He suspended elections. He suspended elections. Oh, there's a war situation going on. You know what? Abraham Lincoln faced just a little bit of a war situation as well. He held elections. FDR faced a war situation. He held his elections. Churchill faced a war situation. And you know what? He was able to do elections. You do elections when you want to do elections. You don't do elections when you want to be a dictator. I don't even like Turkey being a member of NATO. I'm not going to fight to help Erdogan. I don't even understand why they're in NATO at this point. I understood when we put them in NATO because we wanted our nuclear missiles. We wanted our missiles right by the Soviet Union. Today, no. And what do we do now if Turkey were to attack Israel? Erdogan keeps saying, "Oh, we're going to send some missiles over there and all this nonsense." What? If Israel strikes back, what? Are we supposed to go to war against Israel to protect Erdogan? You're kidding me. Oh, but Putin's a bad, corrupt dictator. Yeah, yeah, you got that right. He's got some house out there too, worth I think like God, nobody even knows, $10 billion maybe. It's like on the side of a mountain or something. It's crazy. The man's horribly corrupt. That's why he does outbeat Ukraine for the most corruption. But he's got a lot more steel too than say Zelensky would have. Of course, with all the aid we're sending him, there's probably plenty to steal from there. And how do you like the idea that he refuses to track it? He refuses to track the money we give him. I will bet you after this, you're going to find generals that have multi-million-dollar homes all over the country. And, don't take my word for it. Just Google it on your little phone there and ask what's the most corrupt countries in Europe, and bango, Ukraine's just above Russia. And that's pathetic. There are times that I feel like we're sad that the Soviet Union fell. I mean, I think we miss those days. I was a Cold War Reagan guy, man. I mean, I was there all the way. But times change. Get your mind to change. I mean, I saw the Soviet Union as a threat, and they were. But I never feared the Soviet Union because they were communist. I feared the Soviet Union because they've been invaded constantly. And when you're invaded constantly, you're a little edgy. And I'd much rather deal with a cold, calculating commie than some guy that's, paranoid about that he might be invaded next week. I mean, take our borders right now in the United States. We got Canada to the north of us. Whether they wanted to come back or not, it wouldn't matter. I mean, they can't do anything to us. We got Mexico down there. They're certainly not going to invade us. We have nothing to worry about. Look at what Russia has. Now, Russia and Xi and China are getting together now, but Russia and China hate each other, okay? They've had several conflicts with each other. They hate each other. And that's what he's got on the back of him. All right. In the front of him, he's got Napoleon, who has attacked them, I don't know how many times. He's got Germany that went after him twice. The invasions have gone west to east. Russia's invaded this country. Russia's invaded this country. Russia's invaded this country. Yeah, well, so have we. We invaded Vietnam. And why did we fight the war in Vietnam? Because we're afraid Ho Chi Minh was going to be elected. The CIA, naval intelligence, everybody said Ho Chi Minh was going to win that election. So what did we do? We went over there to stop an election from happening. And, September 11th comes, they bomb the World Trade Center. Virtually all those people, I think, except two, were Saudis. So people from Saudi Arabia bombs the Twin Towers, and we go after Iraq, a guy that we gave billions of dollars of weapons to fight Iran. Saudi people blow up our trade towers, and we go after Iraq. Wow, does that make sense? I think if Putin gets out of line, I think what we should do is go down maybe to Fiji and teach them a lesson. And what I'm even more surprised with is I don't understand how people like Lindsey Graham hasn't gotten it through his skull that nation building doesn't work. It didn't work in Vietnam. What did we gain now from invading Afghanistan? We spent how long in Afghanistan? Spent what, trillions? I don't know. And it's back in the hands of the Taliban. The same in Iraq. You cannot nation build. You cannot impose a democracy with people who don't want it. Okay, it worked in Germany because they want a democracy. They don't want democracy in these places that we are going. We cannot be in a place where people don't want us there. Ho Chi Minh actually said it the best, and I'm paraphrasing it here. But he said, "You will win every single battle. You will kill 10 of our men for every one we kill of you. But in the end, you will tire of it." And that's what happens. They know we have to leave. They know we got to leave. We can't stay there forever. So all they got to do is hold out. Anyway, folks, that's my rant for today. Enjoyed this video. Hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for listening.